Hey everybody, Steve Vandegraff here. Welcome to the Lifestyle Practice Podcast. Thanks for joining today. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm excited to be with you. I am recording this here back in the USA. For anybody that's followed my story, I sold my practice last summer and our family kind of left it all behind and flew to explore Europe for the rest of the year. We traveled around mostly on trains and buses. We each had a backpack and we went from Airbnb to Airbnb, and it was an incredible experience. I think we visited 12 countries. It was really an adventure of a lifetime. We learned a lot about the world and we grew closer together as a family. And now we have made it back to the US. We have a car again, which we haven't had for a long time. And then last week I went inside a Costco and it was like, okay, I am back in America. I love this. I wanted to share with you an experience that I had when I graduated from dental school, right when I bought my practice several years ago. I lost $25,000, but I ended up coming out on top. During dental school, I worked really hard to get a lot of clinical experience. I did a lot of surgery and thirds. I did a fair amount of endo and some implants too, but one thing I got no experience in was ortho. So at the end of my fourth year, I was waiting to close on my practice. I decided with my good friend and next door neighbor, a guy named Derek Williams, to do a bracket and wires orthodontic course. It was in Los Angeles and it was one of those weekend type courses where you come out for a weekend every month for 6 months. I started it right before I closed on my practice. I think I paid for the first couple sessions out of student loans from my fourth year. And I learned a lot. Overall, the course was great. I felt it was solid instruction. They were good teachers. Um, After I finished the course, I ended up spending several $1,000s to get some really nice orthodontic instruments and supplies. And then they even gave me a little nice certificate of completion of the course. It made me feel really special. So I went back to my new practice and I started diagnosing spacing and crowding, and I looked for my first ortho patient. I eventually found him and started the case, and it was just a really tough experience. I had brackets breaking off. This guy, he never wore his rubber bands. And it wasn't too long before I started to lose confidence. I started dreading seeing those appointments on the schedule. And after a while, I just took the brackets off and we started completely over with clear aligners. That patient was my first and last bracket and wires case. I never even tried again. So I paid all that money. I spent all that time. I did all that traveling for nothing. Pretty much just wasted $25,000. But there's a plot twist for you. It ended up actually being some of the best money that I have ever spent. Why? It wasn't the ortho. Each of those weekends, when the lectures were done, there was a group of four of us that would go out to lunch and dinner and we would just talk. Derek, who I mentioned, who you know is outstanding, was one of them. And then there were two other dentists that were a couple years ahead of us. I won't mention their names, but they were just super impressive guys. One did a scratch startup and quickly turned it into a multi-million-dollar practice. The other was a next level big thinker who now, several years later, owns a DSO. And we would sit down for a few hours each day of those weekend trips and we would just talk shop. We'd ask questions, talk about our practices, talk about strategies and big ideas. All of our practices were different, so we'd share what we were doing and learn from each other. We actually never talked about ortho. Those discussions we had over those weekends completely lifted my belief lid. I had in my mind at that time what I thought was a good route to success, what I thought was attainable. But those discussions, learning about what these guys were doing, just opened my eyes to a new level of what was possible. How can you produce that much in an hour? What makes a practice really valuable? How do you manage things so confidently with so little stress? I pulled so many lessons from those weekends. The ortho CE was a failure and a waste of time since I didn't utilize any of it. But the 25,000 I spent might be some of the best I've ever spent because of the time I got to share with our little group. Reid Hoffman said, "The fastest way to change yourself is to hang out with people who are already the way you want to be." So ask yourself, are you where you want to be right now? Are you in the position that you've dreamed of? It's okay if you're not. We should probably all answer no to that question. But the second question is, if not, if you're not where you want to be, who do you have in your corner helping you to get where you want to be. If you do not have a mentor, someone who has done what you want to accomplish, if you don't have someone like that helping you right now, then you need to get serious and find someone. For those 6 months at the beginning of my practice, it was enormously beneficial to listen and to share ideas with those dentists a couple years ahead of me. When the Ortho CE, which had really turned into a business mastermind group, when it ended, I found myself, as many dentists are, pretty alone on an island. I wasn't with anybody each month stretching my vision and answering my questions. Financial independence and working less were really important to me. So I wanted to learn from someone who had done those very things. I hired a coach, and like the mastermind, I was getting vision and inspiration each month. But now it was even better because it was tailored and more focused on my practice and on my mental blocks that I had in my head. I told my coach I didn't want him to agree with what I was doing. Don't really encourage me so much. I wanted him to tell me specifically the things that I was doing wrong. I was paying him thousands of dollars a month, so I wanted to get as much possible out of it. And paying him each month forced me to get a lot out of it, and I did. I remember I wrote out 12 to 15 questions on a piece of paper before every call, and I would just ask as many questions as I could. The results were fantastic. I was doing well before, but I changed things in my practice, mostly my leadership, and I did even better. It was, in some ways, uncomfortable asking for correction, but that's what I wanted. Doc Rivers said, "Good players want to be coached, great players want to be told the truth." The very best in anything out there all have coaches. Jordan, Magnus Carlsen, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, they are the world's best at what they do. You'd think once they're so successful, they wouldn't need a coach anymore. But no, that's not the case. They are the best because they push themselves and learn and grow with coaching. Jordan had Grover practicing and training early every single morning. Steve Jobs, in the beginning of Apple, had Bill Campbell come in and work with him for a decade on how to manage and be a better leader. Elon Musk attributed a lot to his friend Larry Page, who he had come on and help him strategize through the beginning of Tesla when things were really hard. Magnus Carlsen, he had Kasparov, who was the best in the world, teach him. Eventually, he surpassed him, and then he brought in other coaches who weren't better than him at chess, but they could teach him how to think or how to evaluate himself and improve himself. If the best of the best all have coaches, you and I should invest in a corner man if we want to accomplish something special. You may say I'm biased because I'm a coach and consulting is what we do at TLP. To that, I'll say, yes, I'm very biased because I have invested in it myself and I have seen the results with the clients that I've worked with. I can say without reservation, for you to be your best, you need somebody who has done what you want to accomplish, and you need to learn what they know. Ask them, pay them, do what you need to get their knowledge. The earlier you do it, the faster you'll grow, and the sooner you'll be where you want. This lesson really hit home for me at an Ortho CE course, somewhat by happenstance, but hopefully you can go even faster. If you've listened to what my partners, Matt, Derek, and I teach each week, you'll understand what we're talking about and why it works. Think on that. Self-investment is the difference between wishing for something and achieving something. If you're wondering how coaching would help you in your practice, visit our website at thelifestylepractice.com. There's a button on there, hit connect with us. It'll ask you a few questions. Just fill out a few lines and describe the situation you're in, maybe something you're stumped on. Either myself or my partners, Matt and Derek, will respond with how we would approach your situation and on how we would get you from where you're at right now to where you want to be. So stop waiting around. Take action, find that mentor, invest in yourself, and start building the future practice and life that you actually want, faster and with fewer mistakes. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys keep pushing and have a great week. Peace.